Eduardo Viveros Castro will recall a symposium in Rio, just outside of his office at the Museo Nacional. I was challenged from the floor by a postmodernist. Yes, they exist in Brazil. I was challenged from the floor by a postmodernist, and challenge is a good thing. I think a challenge is always a good thing. And I'm not really sure what he had in mind, but he did the usual postmodernist attack. I guess it was on the paper I had just delivered, probably on the sonnets in it, since I like to put poems in things. But it made him upset, and I told him anthropologists don't believe in things. They believe out of them. And I thought that, it's actually satisfied him, but he didn't say anything else beyond that. Just thought I would tell you that.
Response or more?
There's one question that was very little touched upon obliquely by some of the participants to the roundtable, is that when politics is also about power struggle, allocating things and beings, etc., etc., and it's done in context, in framing devices, in frameworks, and these frameworks are what we usually call collectives, but these collectives are composed very differently, and so there's a whole branch of anthropology which is what we used to call social organization, and we are still dealing with segmentary organization, clans, lineages, corporate groups, whatever, and these concepts have to be entirely redefined, reworked. All the tools we are using to deal with collectives have to be redefined if we really want to understand how politics works. Because these are done in this kind of context where they are collective, where they are only humans, or the collective where they are also toucans and jaguars, and others where they are being of the dream times, and this collective also conflict with other collectives, etc., etc. So the whole task of social, the general domain of social organization is in ruin now, I think, and has to be retaken from scratch.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing in relation to what you just said, Philippe, which actually is a point that Morten and I have, owned jointly, or at least we're equally keen on it. I don't know who came up with it first, but simply the observation that what we're broadly defining or calling the ontological turn here implies a very peculiar and perhaps felicitous confluence of the three traditions of anthropology, as it's told canonically. So Roy, just using people as kind of metonyms for particular theoretical contributions, Roy Wagner does the culture side of things. It's the cultural anthropology contribution to the ontological term. If you marry that with Marilyn Strathern's reconstitution precisely of collectives, so the gender of the gift can be read as a Melanesian political philosophy, right? As a response to Hobbes and Locke and so on. And then you, yourself, and Eduardo, as in a very interesting way, an honorary French ethnologist, right? Who do that at a different scale. So the convergence of the cultural, the social, and the ethnological seems to me that is isomorphic to the kind of politics that you're asking for. So that's the point.
That's about as far. Sorry, you guys, you can't have any response. Thank you for that question. It's a really, I think, vital one, and I think it takes at least me back to the point that Helen made with real clarity and design simplicity, which is something that if there's a site that anthropologists can place themselves, it might be productively between what she was calling the ontologies of politics and ontological politics, right? Because if I think with my colleagues in Australia, then the question of entities, what can constitute a being, and thus what can be part of what you're calling a collectivity or an organization, something I might call an arrangement, includes that which is foreclosed by the migration of a philosophical concept, ontology, into, say, the natural sciences, common sense, liberal Western common sense understandings of the division between life and non-life. So that a rock could be a dreaming, but it is not capable of breaking through politically into the kinds of arrangements that my colleagues see are vital to the worlding they want to make, right? So that anthropology, both in the social and the cultural, emphasis on human arrangements, or if we break open the human to animal arrangements in, say, the Amazon, nevertheless there's a certain kind of ground distinction between the bio and the geo that takes us to, I think, where Helen was rightly putting us. That is, there's ontologies of politics, and then there are ontological politics. How do we allow for these new arrangements to have a force in actual worlds, legal regimes, etc., that don't just culturalize them?
No, just I just want to also briefly just comment also on the, I think what Philippe just said, and it brings me also back to something that Kasper Bruun Jensen and others raised in the presentations, that of course states and mining companies and such things also have ontologies, and one of the things that we try to convey in this position paper that we read for this wrote for this occasion is I think that it's really important that as we also mentioned, that the so-called ontological turn of these kinds of method analysis does not really pertain to any particular kind of ethnographic phenomena in particular. It's not like some special non-Western indigenous, shamanism, whatever. It is that too, but it's also the study of the state of a mining company at here or anywhere in the world. And I think in many ways what the ontological turn should be indeed and could be could be understood as a kind of technology for carving out what might be called alterities from things, and those things could really be anything. And I think that's just important to keep in mind. However important it also is that this way of thinking started and will remain to be very much grounded in the study of different kinds of cultural traditions and forms of creativity in tribal and non-tribal contexts across the world. It is also fundamentally a method for carving out other things or other sides of things, and those things could be anything.
Thank you, Philippe, for the question. Archaeologically, this is absolutely crucial. I mean, it's crucial in two ways. One, in that the types of entities that we precisely dig up or pretend to dig up show such an enormous variation in terms of what is included within political collectives or social organisation and so forth, that we have to take that question more seriously, I think. So to build up from those ruins is a positive thing for archaeology, very much. But the second point is also that archaeological phenomena, things that we produce, are